It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Sergeant Calloway had tormented Recruit Thorne for weeks. The quiet one, the small one, the easy target. When he finally snapped, grabbing her by the collar and slamming her against the wall, everyone expected tears, fear, submission. Instead, something changed in her eyes, cold, focused, lethal. Before anyone could blink, the sergeant was on the ground, pinned by the recruit he'd been bullying for weeks. The base fell silent. No one knew who she really was. Not yet. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you're enjoying these military stories, consider subscribing for more every week. Commander Farron Kestrel woke at precisely 0:30 hours, her body responding to years of disciplined routine rather than an alarm. The pre-dawn darkness wrapped around her sparse San Diego apartment like a tactical blanket, shadows concealing the near-military precision of her living space. She moved silently to the kitchen, starting coffee before settling at her desk with the unmarked dossier that had arrived yesterday. The photographs showed similar patterns across 3 separate naval training facilities: recruits with unexplained injuries, equipment failures targeting specific individuals, and a disturbing number of promising candidates washing out after filing complaints. Farron studied each image methodically, her expression revealing nothing as she absorbed the details of what appeared to be systematic abuse disguised as training. Her secure phone illuminated with Admiral Rourke's direct line. She answered on the first ring. "The ethics audit program is approved," Rourke stated without preamble, his voice carrying the weight of decades of command. "The Secretary wants our best operative undercover, someone who can endure the pressure without breaking cover." Farron glanced at the dossier photos again. "How deep am I going, sir?" "Complete immersion. No special treatment." His tone softened slightly. "If these allegations are true, I need someone who can handle whatever they dish out. Your flight leaves at EO 800. After the call ended, Farron stood before her bathroom mirror, scissors in hand. With each precise cut, her shoulder-length hair fell away, taking with it the external markers of her rank and authority. The transformation was more than physical. Her posture shifted, confidence deliberately dampened, her commanding presence folding inward until the reflection showed not Commander Kestrel, but Recruit Thorne, uncertain and vulnerable. She allowed herself one final moment of Commander Kestrel, squaring her shoulders and meeting her own eyes in the mirror. Then she relaxed into her new identity, becoming the person who would draw the exact kind of negative attention her mission required. 1 week later, Recruit Thorne stood at attention in the morning fog at Naval Station Great Lakes, deliberately placed at the end of the formation, where her smaller stature would be most noticeable. The recruits had been standing motionless for 40 minutes, while Sergeant Calloway prowled between their ranks, searching for imperfections. Farron had identified him immediately as the primary subject of her investigation, recognizing the calculated cruelty in his methods from the reports. Built like a battering ram, with eyes that constantly assessed for weakness, Calloway moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute authority. He stopped directly in front of Farron, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "Recruit Thorne," he said, voice deceptively quiet. "What exactly made you think the United States Navy needed someone who looks like they might blow away in a strong wind?" "To serve my country, sir," Farron answered, injecting a slight quaver into her voice. Calloway's lip curled. "Your country," he repeated mockingly. "Your country needs soldiers, Thorne, not whatever this is." He gestured dismissively at her entire body. Farron kept her expression neutral, cataloging his tactics while maintaining her cover. This was exactly the type of targeting behavior described in the reports. The real test would be seeing how far he was willing to go, and who else might be involved. During physical training, Farron deliberately performed just below standard, enough to draw attention without appearing completely incompetent. Calloway responded predictably, singling her out for additional exercises while the other recruits continued the scheduled training. "Again, Thorne," he ordered after she completed her 20th extra push-up, "and this time, try not looking like a dying fish." The other recruits avoided eye contact, fear and relief mingling in their postures, all except one, a tall, broad-shouldered recruit who watched the interaction with barely concealed disapproval. Recruit Bellamy, according to the name, stenciled on his uniform. In the barracks that night, the whispers began as soon as lights out was called. "Calloway's got it out for you already. whispered the recruit in the next bunk. Better keep your head down if you want to make it through week 1. Does he always target someone like that? Farron asked, knowing the answer but needing to establish patterns. Always, came another voice from across the darkened room. Last month it was Oakley. Before that, Chen, people who ask questions tend to disappear around here. They do not disappear, Bellamy interjected firmly from his bunk. They wash out or transfer. This is the military, not some conspiracy movie. Then where's Oakley? Challenged the first voice. Guy was top of PT scores, never missed a mark, then suddenly AWOL after filing that complaint. Enough, Bellamy said, authority in his tone despite his recruit status. Calloway is just doing his job. Training has to be tough. The field is tougher. Farron noted the dynamic, particularly Bellamy's instinctive defense of authority. An idealist, perhaps, or someone raised to respect chain of command without question. She would need to watch how that perspective evolved as evidence mounted. The conversation died down, but not before Farron noticed recruit Zephyr, a quiet, observant recruit with calculating eyes, watching the exchange with unusual intensity. The following days established clear patterns. Calloway systematically targeted Thorne during training exercises, creating impossible scenarios designed to induce failure. Equipment mysteriously malfunctioned during her turns on the obstacle course. Her gear was subject to extra inspections that always found some minor infraction. On the 10th morning, Farron noticed Calloway meeting with Lieutenant Wexler in the shadows between buildings. They exchanged something, a small package quickly concealed in Wexler's pocket before they separated. Farron captured the interaction with her hidden recording device, disguised as a regulation watch. Later that day, Calloway assigned Thorne to the climbing wall, personally checking her safety harness before she began her ascent. Halfway up, Farron felt the harness loosen dramatically. Only her exceptional reflexes and strength allowed her to maintain her grip when the equipment failed completely. "Equipment failure, Thorne," Calloway announced with unconcealed satisfaction as she managed to complete the climb without safety gear. "Maybe you are just not cut out for this." From the corner of her eye, Farron noticed Zephyr watching, not with the shock or fear of the other recruits, but with analytical attention. Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them, a mutual recognition that transcended their recruit status. In the mess hall that evening, Zephyr casually bumped into Thorne, sliding a folded note into her hand with practiced discretion. Back in the relative privacy of the bathroom stall, Farron unfolded the paper. He did the same to recruit Oakley last month. Oakley's gone now. The message confirmed her suspicions. This wasn't just aggressive training tactics. The pattern of equipment sabotage and targeted harassment matched exactly with the reports from the other bases, suggesting a coordinated approach rather than isolated incidents. That night, Farron waited until the barracks were silent before activating her hidden communication device to log her observations. As the screen illuminated, an unexpected message appeared. Watchful eyes everywhere. Her pulse quickened. Someone knew she was not who she claimed to be. But was it a warning from an ally, or a threat from the people she was investigating? Either way, her cover was at risk, and she needed to accelerate her timeline. The next morning, Farron used a bathroom break to slip into the administrative wing. With the techniques that had made her legendary in covert operations, she accessed Lieutenant Wexler's office during the brief window when he took his coffee break. His computer password, predictably, was taped to the underside of his keyboard drawer. Thus, files confirmed her suspicions. Recruit Oakley hadn't been transferred, but reported AWOL after filing a detailed harassment complaint against Calloway. More disturbing were the patterns across multiple recruit classes. Those who questioned Calloway's methods or reported equipment issues consistently disappeared from the program under suspicious circumstances. A noise in the hallway alerted her to someone approaching. Farron quickly closed the files and slid beneath the desk as the door opened. Base Captain Novara entered, followed closely by Wexler returning from his break. "Calloway's methods are drawing attention," Novara stated, closing the door behind them. "The equipment transfers need to proceed without scrutiny." "He keeps the recruits in line," Wexler argued. "Fear is effective." "Until it is not. Admiral Rourke is asking questions now." The mention of Rourke's name confirmed this went beyond Farron's immediate investigation. The Admiral hadn't just sent her to evaluate training ethics. He suspected something larger. As the officers left, Farron's recruit ID card slipped from her pocket, landing silently on the carpet. Captain Novara paused, stooped to pick it up, studied it thoughtfully, then placed it deliberately on Wexler's desk before departing. The gesture left Farron with a critical question. Was Novara warning her that he knew who she was, or signaling that she had an ally in command? Either way, her window for gathering evidence was closing. Tonight, she would need to investigate the restricted warehouse mentioned in Wexler's files, where equipment was apparently being prepared for private transfer. Something much bigger than training abuse was happening at Great Lakes, and Farron was determined to uncover exactly what that might be. Darkness cloaked the base as Farron slipped from the barracks, her movements precise and ghost-like. The restricted warehouse loomed ahead, its windows emitting the faintest glow of interior lighting despite the late hour. Security was minimal, confirming her suspicion that whatever happened here was meant to appear routine, authorized. Using her covert operations training, she bypassed the simple lock and slipped inside, immediately taking cover behind stacked crates. The warehouse interior was arranged in neat sections, but one area stood apart, surrounded by temporary barriers. Farron moved silently toward it, cataloging every detail with practiced efficiency. Behind the barriers, military-grade equipment was laid out in orderly rows, much of it still in original packaging. A workstation had been set up, where two enlisted men methodically removed serial numbers from communications gear, weapon components, and tactical equipment. Farron's jaw tightened as she recognized cutting-edge prototype gear that shouldn't have been at a training facility at all. She activated her hidden recording device, documenting everything while staying concealed in the shadows. This went far beyond training abuses. This was systematic theft of military equipment, likely destined for private contractors, or worse. Voices approached from outside. Farron quickly repositioned behind larger crates as the door opened, admitting Lieutenant Wexler and another figure she recognized immediately as Sergeant Calloway. "The colonel wants the next shipment ready by Thursday," Wexler said, inspecting the processed equipment. "And he wants examples made of anyone asking questions." "Like Oakley?" asked Calloway, his voice casual as if discussing training schedules rather than a missing recruit. "Exactly like Oakley. The last thing we need is recruits noticing patterns." Wexler picked up a tactical communications unit worth thousands. "This operation has been running smoothly for 18 months. We cannot afford scrutiny now." Farron photographed the exchange, her mind racing. Colonel Averin, the base commander, was involved. This wasn't a rogue instructor or isolated incident. This was an organized criminal operation running within an official Navy training facility. As she began to retreat, planning her exit strategy, a hand closed gently but firmly around her upper arm. Farron's combat instincts engaged instantly. She pivoted, ready to neutralize the threat silently, when she recognized Recruit Zephyr's face in the dim light. "I would not go that way," they whispered, directing Farron's attention to a patrol route she hadn't spotted, the guards just seconds from rounding the corner into her path. "Follow me." Every instinct told Farron to handle the situation alone, but Zephyr's knowledge of the guard patterns suggested they had been watching the operation longer than she had. She followed, noting how Zephyr moved with the disciplined silence of someone with professional training. They slipped out through a maintenance access and took cover behind the motor pool building, safely away from the warehouse. "I have been watching you, Commander," Zephyr said quietly, confirming Farron's fear that her cover was compromised. She tensed, ready to neutralize Zephyr if necessary. "Who are you?" "Military intelligence had suspicions about this base for months," they explained. "I was discharged when I started investigating too closely, then mysteriously recycled into basic training." "You know who I am," Farron stated, neither confirming nor denying. "Not your name or rank, but I recognize the way you move, the way you observe. You are no recruit." Zephyr offered a thin smile. "And you are not alone anymore." Farron assessed Zephyr carefully, looking for any sign of deception. Finding none, she made a tactical decision. "Someone accessed my communications device. Was that you?" "No, but we are not the only ones watching." Zephyr pointed to a recently installed camera on the corner of the administration building, its lens directed at the barracks. "New security measures went up 3 days after you arrived. They know someone is investigating, they just have not identified who yet." This complicated Farron's timeline. If Base Command suspected an investigator, but hadn't identified her specifically, They might accelerate whatever operation they were running, or worse, start eliminating potential threats. We need proof connecting Colonel Avron directly to the equipment theft, Farron said, making a split-second decision to trust Zephyr's apparent alliance. And we need to find Oakley. Working on both, Zephyr confirmed. But we need to move carefully. The last person who got close disappeared so thoroughly that even military intelligence could not locate them. They separated before returning to the barracks, maintaining their cover as disconnected recruits. Farron lay awake, recalculating her approach. Her mission parameters had expanded significantly from evaluating training ethics to exposing a criminal conspiracy involving base command. Admiral Rourke needed to be updated, but her compromised communications device made that impossible without risking the entire operation. The next morning, Calloway's targeting of Recruit Thorne became brazenly public. During inspection, he upended her footlocker in front of the assembled unit, scattering her perfectly arranged gear across the floor. "What is this?" he demanded, reaching down to retrieve items that Farron knew with absolute certainty were not hers. A watch belonging to another recruit, cash from the base exchange, and a small pocket knife restricted from recruit possession. "Those are not mine, sir," Farron stated firmly, maintaining her cover while refusing to accept the obvious setup. "Stealing from your fellow recruits," he announced to the unit. "Pathetic." Recruit Bellamy stepped forward, his idealism finally overridden by his innate sense of fairness. "Sir, that is impossible. Thorne was with me during evening study period. She never went near Matthew's bunk." Calloway's face darkened with genuine anger, not the performative kind he typically displayed. This was not part of his script. He crossed to Bellamy in 2 quick strides and shoved him hard enough that the larger recruit stumbled backward. "Another word, and you will be joining Oakley, understood?" The threat hung in the air, confirmation of everything Farron had uncovered. From her peripheral vision, Farron noticed Captain Novara observing from the edge of the training yard, making notes on a tablet. Their eyes met briefly, and something in Novara's gaze confirmed Farron's growing suspicion. The captain was not part of the conspiracy. He was gathering his own evidence. Calloway, perhaps sensing the shifting dynamics, turned his full attention back to Farron, his face contorted with barely controlled rage as he closed the distance between them. "You have corrupted my unit, Thorne," he seethes, grabbing her by the collar and slamming her against the wall of the barracks. "Time to make an example." The assembled recruits froze in collective terror. No one moved to intervene. No one dared breathe. This had gone beyond strict training into visible assault, crossing lines that even the most hardened military training would not condone. Farron had maintained her cover perfectly until this moment, absorbing Calloway's targeting and harassment exactly as a struggling recruit would. But as her back hit the wall, her gaze shifted to Captain Novara, seeking either intervention or permission. Novara gave an almost imperceptible nod, confirmation that the evidence was sufficient. She was authorized to proceed. In that instant, everything about Farron changed. The frightened recruit posture vanished. Her eyes, previously showing calculated submission, transformed to reveal the cold, analytical focus of a highly trained operative. Her breathing regulated, her muscles coiled with precision rather than fear. Calloway registered the change too late. Something in her expression alarmed him, triggering his instinct to escalate the physical confrontation. As his grip tightened, intending to lift her off her feet, Farron executed her response with surgical precision, a subtle shift of weight, a redirection of force, and a perfectly calibrated countermove. In less than 2 seconds, she broke his grip, reversed the hold, and had Calloway on the ground, immobilized in a control position that would be immediately recognizable to anyone with special operations training. Absolute silence fell over the training yard. Calloway's expression reflected pure shock as he found himself completely neutralized by the recruit he had been tormenting for weeks. "Who the hell are you?" he gasped, the question emerging as much from pain as from disbelief. Farron did not answer. She did not need to. The demonstration had served its purpose, revealing her capabilities while maintaining the final veil over her true identity and mission. With practiced control, she released the hold and rose smoothly to her feet, brushing off her uniform with calm precision. Then, executing a flawless regulation salute that no basic recruit could have mastered, she directed it not to Calloway, but to Captain Novara, who had approached during the confrontation. Novara returned the salute with full military protocol, a gesture that communicated volumes to the stunned observers. This was not just recognition of a superior officer, it was confirmation of authority, of sanction. Commander Kestrel, Novara stated formally, using her real name for the first time, I believe you have seen enough. Shocked murmurs rippled through the assembled recruits as the pieces fell into place. Their struggling fellow recruit was something else entirely, someone with the authority to evaluate even their commanding officers. Calloway struggled to his feet, face flushed with equal parts pain and humiliation. This is some kind of joke, he sputtered, looking to the other instructors for support. They remained frozen, uncertain which way the wind was blowing in this sudden reversal of power. This is an authorized ethics. Evaluation of naval training protocols, Novara explained calmly. Commander Kestrel has been observing and documenting training methods across multiple facilities. You knew? Calloway directed his rage at Novara. You set me up? I requested the investigation, Novara replied, revealing his role as the whistleblower who had initiated the process. After 3 recruits under your supervision disappeared following complaints. Farron maintained her composed, professional demeanor, but inside she reassessed everything about the operation. Captain Novara had not just been aware of her presence, he had been the one to bring the initial reports to Admiral Rourke's attention. The conspiracy was larger, but had fewer participants than she had initially suspected. As Calloway was escorted away by military police who seemed to materialize from nowhere, Farron noticed Colonel Averin watching from the window of the administration building, his expression unreadable at this distance. The real confrontation, she knew, was still to come. The conspiracy reached to the highest levels of base command, and while Calloway might have been its most visible enforcer, he was merely a symptom of the true infection. The next phase would require all of Farron's skill, not as an undercover operative, but as a commanding officer bringing justice to a corrupted system. The base commander's office transformed instantly from a space of rigid military protocol to a battleground of a different sort. Colonel Averin stormed in, face flushed with barely contained fury, followed by 2 senior officers whose nervous expressions revealed they understood the gravity of the situation better than their commanding officer. What is the meaning of this disruption, Captain? Averin demanded, addressing Novara while deliberately ignoring Farron, who now stood in her proper officer's uniform, rather than recruit fatigues. Who authorized an undercover operation on my base without my knowledge or approval? Captain Novara remained standing at parade rest, his composure unshaken by Averin's display. Without speaking, he placed a secure tablet on the desk and activated it, displaying Farron's complete file, classification levels that made even Averin pause momentarily. Sir, this is Commander Farron Kestrel, Novara stated formally. Her credentials and mission parameters were authorized at the highest levels. Farron stepped forward, her presence now commanding the space in ways that would have been impossible to imagine during her weeks as the struggling recruit Thorn. Colonel Averin, I have been conducting an authorized ethics evaluation of training protocols across 3 naval bases, she explained, her tone professional and unaccusatory. Sergeant Calloway is the 5th instructor I have evaluated and the 3rd who failed to meet basic standards of ethical leadership. Averin's face drained of color as he processed the implications. His gaze darted between Farron and Novara, calculating his position. Training is necessarily demanding, Commander. Perhaps civilian oversight does not fully appreciate the requirements of producing combat-ready sailors. I assure you, Colonel, my understanding of combat requirements is comprehensive, Farron replied evenly. My evaluation was not about intensity of training, but about systematic abuse of authority. Averin attempted to regain control of the narrative. If Sergeant Calloway overstepped certain boundaries, that reflects on his judgment, not on base command protocols. I will personally review his methods and ensure appropriate corrections. But that is not all I found, sir, Farron continued, sliding forward a secure drive containing the evidence she had gathered. Systematic theft of military equipment, falsification of records, and intimidation of witnesses. The door opened as Zephyr entered, now dressed in the uniform of naval military intelligence rather than recruit fatigues, accompanied by armed military police. Commander, we have located recruit Oakley, they reported. He is alive, being held at an off-base facility registered to Coastal Security Contractors. Zephyr placed additional evidence files on the desk, including surveillance photos showing Lieutenant Wexler, Calloway, and 3 other officers engaged in the equipment theft operation. Most damning were the financial records directly connecting the private security firm to offshore accounts in Averin's name. Averin's composure cracked. With unexpected speed for a man his age, he lunged toward his desk drawer, clearly reaching for what would likely be a sidearm. Farron moved faster, intercepting him with a control technique that immobilized his arm without causing injury. "The Naval Criminal Investigative Service has questions for you, Colonel," she stated calmly as the MPs moved in to take custody. "About equipment theft, abuses of power, and the disappearance of 17 recruits who filed complaints over the past 3 years. Averin, finally understanding the completeness of his exposure, abandoned pretense. "You have no idea what you are disrupting," he hissed. "This goes beyond one base, beyond the Navy itself. There are interests at play that will not tolerate interference." "That," Farron responded, "is precisely what we intend to investigate next." As Averin was escorted out, Admiral Rourke entered. Having arrived via helicopter after receiving Farron's emergency signal, he surveyed the room, nodding approval at the operation's outcome. "Captain Novara," he addressed the whistleblower who had initiated the investigation, "you are hereby appointed interim base commander, effective immediately. Begin a comprehensive review of all personnel and training protocols." Novara accepted the responsibility with a crisp salute. "Yes, sir. And the recruits currently in training? They will continue under revised protocols," Rourke decided. "They have already endured enough disruption. Commander Kestrel will oversee the transition before proceeding to her next assignment." 3 days later, Farron stood before the assembled training unit in her full-dress uniform, the rows of commendation medals and insignia telling a story of service that none of them had suspected during her weeks as Recruit Thorn. The recruits stood at attention, still processing the revelation that had transformed their understanding of the past month. "At ease," she ordered, and watched as they shifted posture, their eyes revealing mixed emotions, questions they were too disciplined to voice without permission. "You have all been part of an operation you did not volunteer for," Farron acknowledged. "For that, I offer not an apology, but an explanation. What you experienced was real training corrupted by individuals who betrayed their oath of office. That corruption has been removed." She paced slowly before the formation, meeting their gazes directly. "The uniform does not make the soldier," she told them. "The integrity beneath it does. Some wear their rank as a shield against accountability. Others wear it as a reminder of their responsibility. Each of you will choose which legacy to carry forward." Recruit Bellamy, who had risked his own standing to defend Thorne against Calloway's false accusations, stood particularly straight, his expression reflecting the recalibration of his idealism. Not abandoned, but tempered with the understanding that respect for authority must be paired with moral courage. Captain Novara joined Farron on the review stand, addressing the unit with new authority. "Commander Kestrel's report will transform how we conduct training across all naval facilities," he informed them. "The strength of our military is not in how we break recruits, but in how we build them into leaders worthy of the oath they take." The unit was dismissed to their modified training schedule, supervised now by instructors who understood the difference between discipline and abuse. Bellamy lingered behind, clearly struggling with unasked questions. "Permission to speak freely, Commander?" he requested formally. "Granted," Farron replied, seeing in him the potential leader who had begun to emerge during the crisis. "Was any of it real?" he asked. "The struggling recruit, the person we tried to help?" Farron considered the question carefully. "The weakness was a cover," she acknowledged. "But the person observing your integrity, your willingness to stand up for what was right, even at personal risk, that was entirely real." Bellamy nodded, processing this. "What happens now, Commander?" "Now we rebuild," Farron answered. "The system is not broken, just some of the people in it. And now there is room for leaders like you, who understand that true strength includes moral courage." For the next week, Farron oversaw the transition, working with Novara to identify which instructors could be retained and which needed reassignment. The investigation expanded beyond Great Lakes to the network of private contractors who had received the stolen equipment, many with connections to former military officers who had left service under questionable circumstances. Recruit Oakley was recovered and debriefed, his testimony adding critical evidence against those involved in the conspiracy. What had begun as an evaluation of training ethics had uncovered a network of corruption that extended through multiple bases and potentially reached levels of the military procurement system that would require months of additional investigation. On her final morning at Great Lakes, Farron joined Admiral Rourke for a private briefing in what had been Averin's office, now stripped of the former commander's personal effects. 17 corrupt instructors removed across 3 bases, Rourke summarized, reviewing her complete report, plus 5 senior officers and a network of contractors now under federal investigation. Not bad for what was supposed to be a simple ethics audit. The rot went deeper than anyone suspected, Farron observed, and wider. The equipment theft operation appears connected to similar schemes, at least 2 other branches. Which is why your next assignment is already prepared, Rourke informed her. After you take some well-earned leave. Farron raised an eyebrow. With respect, Admiral, I would prefer to continue while the investigation has momentum. Rourke smiled slightly. That was not a suggestion, Commander. Even our best operatives require downtime. That is an order. After the briefing concluded, Farron took a final walk around the base that had been her home for the past month. The physical surroundings remained the same, but the atmosphere had transformed. Instructors engaged with recruits firmly but respectfully. Training remained rigorous but had shed the element of arbitrary cruelty that had characterized Calloway's approach. On the training field, she paused to observe a familiar figure. Recruit Bellamy, now identified for officer candidacy based on his demonstrated leadership qualities, was helping a struggling recruit master a difficult technique. His instruction was precise but patient, demanding excellence while providing the support needed to achieve it. The graduation ceremony for that training cycle took place 3 months later. Farron, having completed her mandated leave and begun preparations for her next assignment, attended in civilian clothes, observing from a distance as Bellamy received a commendation for courage and was appointed to the newly formed Ethics Oversight Committee that would help prevent future abuses. Admiral Rourke joined her as the ceremony concluded. That was your recommendation, he noted, indicating Bellamy's appointment, seeing potential where others might have seen only a rule follower. He demonstrated the capacity to evolve, Farron explained, to question authority without abandoning discipline. The Navy needs more leaders with that balance. They walked together past the new training, groups observing the revised protocols in action. Recruits faced challenges designed to build rather than break them, supervised by instructors who understood that respect flowed both ways in truly effective leadership. Ready for your next assignment, Commander? Rourke asked. Farron watched a moment longer, as Bellamy demonstrated a proper technique to his training group, his manner reflecting the lessons learned during the crisis. This was never about punishment, she said quietly. It was about restoration. As they walked toward the administration building, they passed a wall displaying photographs of previous base commanders. A space was being prepared for a new addition, Captain Novara's official portrait, as the interim commander whose permanent appointment had just been confirmed. Farron paused, noting the contrast between Averin's stern, unapproachable image and the space where Novara's more accessible leadership style would soon be represented. The symbolic changing of the guard reflected everything the mission had accomplished. The strongest warriors are not those who never fall, she reflected, adjusting her civilian jacket as if it were a uniform. They are those who have the courage to stand back up and to help others rise with them. With one last glance at the recruits training under the reformed system, Farron straightened her shoulders and walked forward into the clear morning light, ready for whatever mission came next. The work was never truly complete, but each corrupt system exposed, each ethical leader elevated, represented progress worth the sacrifice. Behind her, Bellamy led his unit in formation, his voice carrying across the training yard with authority tempered by respect. Evidence that even in the most rigid systems, positive change was possible when people of integrity refused to look away from injustice.